happy to introduce Melissa. She's our very own VP of Member Services for the Insights Career Network. Melissa's got a strong background, which started in social research. She's worked for companies like Texas Instruments, GameStop, and 7-Eleven. She's a master storyteller, relationship builder, and also is a very strong supporter of volunteering and giving back as part of her role with the Dallas area Parkinson Society. So welcome, Melissa.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me turn this on to a presenter view there. And hopefully, can everyone see my slide?
Yep.
Great, great. Um, so, like Melanie said, thank you for the introduction. I am the VP of Member Services here for ICN, and I started in this position not only because I was interested in what we're doing, and I said, hey, this is something worth my time and effort, and we're doing great things, but also because I wasn't working. So I had the time. And it was around the start of what is now an over 1 year gap, which is kind of difficult sometimes to talk about, but this is what I'm here to tell you what to do in your gap. And certainly everyone's experience is different, but I want you to go ahead and just think about the people in your life, right? We're not human doings. We're human beings, right? So think of a friend who's maybe going through a divorce or a financial crisis or even a job loss. And how much energy does it take to be with them? You want to be there for them. But now think of your friend who maybe is going on some solo travel or spends the weekends with home projects and is finally starting their new business, making up, some of us in our gap are doing consulting, right? How invigorated do you feel after hanging out with them? So these two friends could very well be the same person, right? The person who just is going through a divorce could be the person that's, solo traveling. But the difference in how you experience who they are is who they're being at the time that they're sharing with you, right? So I want to say that let's see, sorry, um, the more you give, the more you get. And it applies here. So when you're out there, I want you to be making introductions and sharing your skills to those who are starting out, volunteering, all of that. So give recommendations on LinkedIn. I know Brian has mentioned that a couple times to us. So now there's a couple different ways to be, right? I'm going to say, see if it will come here. Be generous. Okay. And apologize. I seem to have lost a connection. Apologies. So when you're doing these things and giving recommendations and you're making introductions and sharing those skills, you are getting your name out there too. So it gives you something back. You're popping up in others' feeds, you're meeting others who are experts in their fields. And when you join as mentors and meet up, then you're also meeting other experts in your field. So the next thing in how you be is being authentic. So, why is it that you're invigorated by your friends who are up to something and who are starting a business or traveling? It's because they're sharing their passion. So we all want passion in our lives, right? That's why we have the holiday meetups that, I'm jingle and mingle. I love that. But when you share what drives you and what makes you want to work in insights, you are sharing of yourself, and that's being generous and authentic. So if you're one of the few who have not heard of Simon Sinek and the Start with the Why, I recommend you go Google that and watch it and find out what is your why. What are you passionate about? What drives you? What motivates you to be in insights? One of the things that I share with almost everyone is why I'm in insights is because I want to give a voice to others. It's being an advocate is something I'm passionate about, whether it is for my children in school or consumers in work that I do. So that is something that you want to do. The other thing, the way that we um, be upbeat. So if you're not employed, that can kind of sound negative, right? Oh, I'm unemployed, going to talking to people. And it's hard, but maybe you're not unemployed. Maybe you're between postings. When you're between postings, there's an end to it. It's a bookend, right? So you lost your job and you're between postings until you get your next one. It's just an attitude shift so that this is who I am and who I be. Okay. And who we are and who we show up as, it changes everything about our experience. And who we be dictates that. If there's any grammatical people in here, please don't hate me for saying who you be. but, and that's how you'll be remembered after you leave the room. So how do you want to be remembered by potential colleagues, bosses, committee members? Who you be those things. So do you want to be magnetic, vibrant, smart, relatable, creative? In all your interactions, do that and be that person. So now that we know how we're going to be around others, we're not being awkward or desperate. We're being strong and smart and vibrant, right? I'm going to remind you of Newton's first law of motion. So object at rest stays at rest, and object in motion stays in motion unless acted upon another force, right? So what are we going to bring in to be that other force? Because if we're at rest, we're going to stay here unless we do something, right? So here's what you're going to do. You are going to network. And I know that that's a scary word, and you hear it all the time. Can't stress the power of networking enough, though. Brian mentioned it earlier, or I guess probably in Chelsea's area, we're less than 2 people away from the next job or the person who knows the next job, right? And that's all you need. Out of 2,000 people that will see your post, you only need one person that is looking for you. So I want you to go out and, people will say, what are you doing now? And you say, well, I'm unemployed or I'm between postings, right? But say it, be direct, and then move from the problem to the resolution. One of the things I have learned over my career is not to go to my boss or director or anyone really looking for an answer, saying, here's my problem, solve it for me, but come with a solution. Come ready to say, this is what needs to happen. So you're wondering, what am I going to tell people when I network? You're not going to tell them I'm unemployed. You might say, I'm between postings, and then move on to this resolution, right? Share what you're looking for, what it is you're looking for in a job, in a company. Earlier, Charles in his thing said, hey, I'm looking for a company with values, social impact, things like that. So share with others what it is you're looking for. Talk about how you're spending your time. And this is my favorite thing. I'm going to say it twice. This is a place to shine, not whine. No one, I don't like whining. I get enough for my kids. I don't want to hear, oh, no one wants to hire me. People that makes it hard to be with you, right? So shine, don't whine. Let them know and be engaging. When we talk about who we be engaging and then engage them. Do it. You'll find that it's a little bit easier. So if you have a few things lined up that you want to talk about, right? So here's a few things you could be doing to say, here's what I'm up to, right? People who are up to things are much easier to talk to because they have something to say. So volunteering. We can all volunteer somewhere. It could be something in Insights, like the Insights Career Network. It could be with Insights Association, QRCA. It could be your local library. Who knows? Wherever there is a need, you can show up. And then what's your flex? Like, what are you good at? Are you good at management, onboarding of new technology, fundraising? Fundraising is a huge thing. Everyone needs it, right? Leadership, just where can you make a difference? And I want to share with you guys, I'm between postings and I'm doing unpaid work, right? I'm VP Member Services, but I'm also with Dallas Area Parkinson Society. I'm their fundraising chair. This, I guess it was, I went to Quirks Dallas in April and of this year, and I hadn't worked for pay since the previous June. So about 9 months without a job. And I talked to everyone I could. It was humbling. I had to say, I'm still unemployed, still between postings. But I refreshed connections with folks that I hadn't had a chance to see since I was working, remote. So I had to meet with people. And I met new folks. Some were client side coming in, and some were hiring, and others I had an eye on their company. So I'm just asking about their company culture. Met and spoke with vendors and suppliers, and I made plans to meet up. If you have a chance to meet up with fellow ICN members that you meet here in your breakout groups, and then you say, hey, I kind of want to meet in person. See where there's a conference between the two of you and meet up. I met up with our wonderful Sarah Weber. Love her. And so I sometimes even used introducing her as my way to start off a conversation where I need a little help. She's kind of like my wing woman. I was able to say, hey, have you met Sarah Weber? She's kind of new to this industry and this is what she's up to. And let them get into a conversation and to say, by the way, this is what I'm up to. And I would love to get, stay in the conversation. And I would love to work with you in the future. Let me know what's going on. And the thing is, when people asked about what I was up to, I shared about volunteering, yes. And it wasn't anything in Insights DAPS. And I shared why I chose to spend my time there. I mentioned how the work I was doing was really helping them identify their audience and how we had plans to talk segmentation as we grew and matured. I mean, we're not there yet. Granted, we're a small organization, but and then I shared also about fundraising. I'm their fundraising committee chair. So it's kind of like that's very similar to the work I did come budget season on the client side. I had to make a case for why I need this project to be championed. I had to make a case for why I need budget. So making a case in fundraising is very similar to making a case come budget season. So everything you do, whether it's personal or not, or insights or not, there's a way to share that. And I shared also about the ICN work we did, and I'm pretty sure I recruited a few new members, hopefully. Cool. So did it get me a job? I'm still between postings, right? Well, no, it didn't get me a job. But midday, as I was sharing, excuse me, I'm in Texas, so it's allergy season every season. um, so midday, I was sharing with someone about, here's where my passions are, and this is what I'm doing, and this is what I'm up to, and I really believe in it, but I still want to be in research. And I definitely have time for that, and I want to work in research, preferably for pay. But midday, someone came up to me and they're like, they listened to what I've said. They said, hey, I want to tell you about our company. We're on the vendor side. If you're ever interested in coming back to vendor side, we're minority owned, we're women owned. And would you consider coming in as an account director? I said, I don't think that's where my career headed. I blushed a little. Like that's a great opportunity, but I don't think it's where my career headed. I don't know if I'm any good at selling. And she said, well, you sold me. And we're connected. And I'm sure it could have been a great position. It's just not where my career was headed. And I want to explore more on innovation with methodologies. But that's the power of sharing what you're up to and being authentic, right? When you are authentic, then people will come up and listen, and they'll listen to what you're saying and they will relate to it. So sorry, I went off on volunteering there for a minute, but so classes, you want to share with people your ability to your growth mindset, your ability and eagerness to learn new things. We're in a changing landscape every day. AI is coming up. So what classes are you taking that you can talk about? Hey, I've learned this new thing. Or, hey, I'm trying to figure out a little bit about this. And I know your company does XYZ. How are you using it? Or what tips and tricks do you have for me? Being able to share your growth mindset is something that companies are always looking for. People that are not able to adapt and change will be lost. and especially in a time of where things are moving so quickly. Um, like I said, personal interests, whether it's to do with insights or not, being able to share your personal interests with passion and bring people in to relate with you. So whether it's you're taking up a new hobby, okay, I learned how to crochet during COVID. Well, I knew how, but I picked it back up. And sewing. What does that have to do with insights? Why does that make me marketable as an insights professional? Well, it's taught me some professional things about how to deal with frustration, how to problem solve. And those are two big things that it doesn't matter what industry it's in, knowing those and being able to do those two things, deal with frustration. I mean, if you're going to work on a team, there's going to be frustrations, and knowing how to deal with them and how to not give up, how to persevere, how to keep going is something that everyone needs. So also, I talk about travel a lot. My family and I love traveling. And it's not just we do a lot of international travel, but I am able to share how those travel and personal experience have given me a unique lens. I grew up overseas, so I also share about that, where when we're talking about different cultures or different segments, I have a unique lens because of that. So, what in your world is going on with you personally that you can share about that shows others you know got some skills, you've got a growth mindset, you've been able to have a unique lens on different aspects of whether it's a industry or a segment. What can you share about that you're passionate about? So um, obviously, you can network at conferences. That's a kind of top of mind one, right? But and if you haven't done so in a while, Toastmasters, you can network there. It's not just about public speaking. And speaking of that, I mean, luncheons, whether they're in person or virtual for organizations around your area, talk to others up and down management levels and in and out of the industry. When Sarah and I were at that conference, we're both kind of on the client or what they call brand side, I guess now. Um, I told her, well, let's talk to some vendors. There's some vendors who are going to have no interest in talking to us because we don't have a position yet. But you'll find vendors have clients they serve, and they would love to get someone in client side so that they have an in. Okay. And I'm not speaking down about vendors or supplier side or anything like that. I'm just saying that's how you network. Who do you know that knows someone that might know the position you want? And it's just about that. You meet anyone and everyone. And it doesn't have to be in an industry. You could go, my local library has career talks, right? And maybe see if they're doing a resume talk and, you know, see if you can up your resume and talk to the people there. Who knows? Maybe they're in IT, maybe they're in HR, maybe they're in accounting, and that has nothing to do with what you're doing. But do they have lunch with the person that's in marketing that knows about a position that is in research? Maybe. Do they have a neighbor? If you're at the PTA, what does their spouse do? What do they do? What's interesting about them? How did they end up where they are? So, Brian posted a LinkedIn article or post recently about networking and how he was with Bike Walk Alameda, I think, or Walk Bike Alameda, and how it's similar to what I'm doing with DAPS, where it's not necessarily in insights, but it's something I'm passionate about. And then there are other people in that group that I get to talk to, and they say, "Hey, I know someone who knows someone who knows someone at that organization. Let me connect you because I see what you're doing here, and I want to help you out." So be someone. We go back to be someone that other people want to refer, do stuff that gives people something to say about you or for you to say about yourself. And now we're going to say, what do we say? So, okay, you're being who you are, you're doing what you're doing, and now what do you say? Right? So I have a quote here from Chief Joseph, if anyone's from the Pacific Northwest. It does not require many words to speak the truth. So, you don't have to say a whole lot, right? You just want to make sure the message is there. Okay. So we don't want a gap in our resume, right? So how do we make sure that there isn't one? Time should be accounted for on your resume. If it isn't listed in the employment section, make sure it's listed somewhere. Okay. Um, so if you can't put it in employment, work on something else. In 2012, I had a job change, but I also had a presentation and a publication. And if you scan my resume, you can see 2012, 2012, 2012 comes up quite a bit. I was working, I was presenting on the. Now, what are you going to see in 22? You're going to see that I worked until June 30th. So I wish it was July so I could put July, right? But you're going to see I worked until June of 2022. Where else does 2022 come up so that you can see that I have been doing stuff? Well, I haven't been, remember earlier I said I haven't been doing paid work. It's not that I haven't been working. I've been working, just not for pay, right? I've been volunteering. In 2023, I joined a board, and while it isn't within the insights industry, I'm using it and honing relevant skills, right? So that DAPS board, the Dallas Area Parkinson's Society, and I do fundraising for them. And it's a nonprofit. And like I said, it's very similar to working with stakeholders and budgets. And if I ever have to write grant letters, how is a grant letter so similar to an RFP, right? So take on a position. And then this year in 24, I joined the ICN, VP Member Services, right? And through that, I was able to do a presentation at IIEX. So there's a presentation in 2024. And then you'll also see that I'm doing this presentation now. So every opportunity you have, you want to make sure that every year that you look on your resume, every year is present and accounted for. Okay. So how are we going to do that? Let me tell you, I love the publications section of the resume, right? It's like, oh, that's like smart doctoral people, right? And I'm not putting down, saying you're not smart or a doctoral candidate, but I've learned it's not so hard to get published. It's all about how you go about doing it. So call for papers. Go to your university. When I first was out of school, I went to the University of Texas and I would roam the halls and see things. And I saw, oh, there's a call for papers for a conference on graduate studies. Well, I can do that. And there's no requirement to be a graduate student. Bonus. And I got to do that. So now on my publication section, there is a paper that I wrote for that conference. Articles, you can go industry journals. I did an article for back when it was the MRA alert. Now it's the Insights Association, but maybe you do an article on LinkedIn or community newsletters. See what you can get published for, and just make sure it's professional. And another thing is presentations. If you can go to industry conferences, we all know there's always openings for that. I think people here with the Research on Research team have been invited to speak. There's universities, like I said, they'll also have presentations in community organizations. So maybe you're going to the Rotary Club, or maybe, like I said, the library here, at least in Arlington, Texas, we do different career source type things where you could be a presenter, right? And then what about guest lecturing, right? I've guest lectured before. It's so much fun. I got to talk to the future researchers of tomorrow, right? And then I guess the next thing is skills. So I saw someone answer the question beforehand about what are you doing with your gap, and some folks said, "Oh, I'm upskilling." Yes, definitely. I've done R, I've done Python. I haven't actually finished Python. I kind of failed on that one. But this is the time that you get to learn new things, whether it's a new language. Maybe it's learning about a specific segment, taking a class or reading up or studying yourself, right? The other thing is volunteering. So like I mentioned it in almost every single slide here, that volunteering, it gives you a way to highlight and showcase your skills. You could be mentoring, you could be tutoring, fundraising, you could be leadership. So those things, all your experience doesn't have to be under the employment section. So you want to look, where have you been doing unpaid work and how are you going to list it in your resume, right? So that was a very condensed version. I'm always open to talking with others. If you decide to join me on LinkedIn, please send me a note with your request because I need that context for know how we're connected. But I think my time is close to up, so I don't want to go into community time. I know we're going to do that next, but I want to remind you guys, it's about who you be. It's about what you're doing and what you say. So make sure that that's all in line. If you've ever done branding work, that's pretty much what this is, your personal brand, right? Who you be for other people, how you show up, what you're doing with your time so that you can talk about with that time. So I hope this was helpful for y'all. If you want to hit me up on LinkedIn, I'm perfectly happy with that. Otherwise, I look forward to meeting a couple of you in our community time. So